I'm Josh Durso, and this is our Sunday Conversation. Today I'm joined by Brian McConnell, Executive Director of the American Red Cross Finger Lakes Chapter. Brian, welcome back.
Josh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's nice to see you again.
I can't believe it's been 2 years. We were talking about that before we came out.
I guess it's been a busy 2 years. Probably,
Must be.
And I appreciate you juggling your schedule to fit me in. We know that last August right on through was busy for us from not only a local disaster response, but also from a national response. And so that accounts for at least 6 months, but hope to be back sooner.
So to that end, let's start right there. Let's talk about, before we get into some of the things that are going on now, let's talk about what was 2018.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that stood out to you on the local level, just in terms of what you guys had to respond to, what you saw, trends, etc.?
So I think we need to just recognize the human compassion and drive that we saw. Unfortunately, we experienced what is probably best termed as a 100 years flash flood up along Seneca Lake, not only affecting Chemung County, Seneca County, but also down through Broome County as well. So we had, at a high point, we had up to 8 shelters opened. And in some of the post-community meetings that I had opportunity to attend, some of the more senior members were sharing that they remembered a similar incident from 1933. During that incident, they experienced a loss of 23 souls. So we're fortunate that we didn't lose any lives. The amount of debris, both dead trees and live trees and material, rock and sediment, parts of houses and parts of sheds that all found their way down from the top of, I guess you'd call it the East Hill, into Seneca Lake was just beyond anything I had ever seen.
Is the fact that there was no loss of life surprising, given what it looked like afterwards?
It is.
Yeah.
We are very fortunate that we didn't lose any lives in this particular response. And hats off to, all the volunteer fire companies and the town leadership. These individuals came together. Many of them had all been impacted themselves. At a high point with the number of washouts, road washouts, building compromises, households that were compromised, we had really isolated pockets of individuals working to try to save lives and make sure that there wasn't extensive damage to other homes.
How does an organization like yours, obviously you're sort of always ready, but the preparation for something like that, obviously you don't see it coming. So how do you guys sort of prepare and get ready throughout the year so that you are ready for something like that, God forbid, when it actually happens?
Yeah, I think we all missed this particular storm, even as soon as the morning of. We weren't anticipating anything more than localized flooding, but not of this magnitude. How do we prepare? We are really honored to have individuals that make a donation of time. And over the years, the organization, the American Red Cross, has made a commitment to really be a premier partner at the national disaster response level. Mm-hmm. Because of that commitment, we follow the National Incident Response System, which means that we are to be specialized and focused in our service delivery. So for us, we follow what is known as Emergency Service Function Number 6. And that is bulk distribution, sheltering, bulk distribution of food, and relief supplies. To that end, the training regiment now for our disaster volunteers is upwards of 60 hours that they need to complete. And so it's not for the faint of heart to make a commitment to become a trained disaster responder. But if individuals find themselves with extra time, I would encourage them to at least reach out, not only to us, but consider your volunteer fire company, reach out to local emergency management. There are opportunities to be involved in disaster response, not only here locally, but nationwide through a number of organizations. So I think it comes through the training and the opportunity to bring people together. Our most common training venue, or on-the-job training, if you will, is single and multifamily house fires. So many of the individuals who complete that 60-hour of training are paired up with a mentor, and no fooling, nights, holidays, and weekends, they're part of responses. It may just be a single-family household, may have just been, not to minimize it, but it may have been a kitchen fire, just a stovetop fire, but still we were called by the supervising official, whoever the incident manager is, to respond to check into the family's needs. And that gives that new volunteer some on-the-job training opportunity to, number one, develop their casework model, and also to practice the process that is the American Red Cross response.
So I'm really curious, when you guys get through the sort of immediate response to something like a large flood, like what happened in South Seneca and further south, after you're through that immediate response process, what does the review look like, or how do you guys sort of check back to see, where the successes, where the opportunities were, and then to sort of learn how to keep improving? Because I'm assuming it's a constant work in progress.
Yeah. So internally, we had our own after action, because the size and scope of that meant that we mobilized volunteers from across upstate New York. And it was just heartwarming to see individuals come together to help families and other communities that are impacted. It is truly heartwarming. It's awful that we have to do it, but it is heartwarming that we have individuals that are willing to make that commitment. Internally, we did our after action, and we will make adjustments based on some of that feedback. The individual volunteers kind of share. It may be just internal processing, such as the logistics of how do we get cleanup kits from point A to point B. But it also comes down to leadership opportunities. Out of these responses, we find volunteers that we then can approach and say, you really did a good job managing these 20 people. Would you consider becoming a disaster leadership volunteer? More often than not, they want to say, no, I just want to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But ultimately, somebody still has to be in charge. And so we rely on our skilled individuals to step up and be the leaders of their peers.
And to that end, I'm sure you hear it from time to time, but we saw just in some of the comments on social media and talking to folks down in the southern part of Seneca County, that thought process as they're getting the Red Cross assistance, as they're talking to these people, they're saying to themselves, I couldn't imagine what this disaster would have looked like and what the response would have looked like if you weren't there. Does that make you feel good? And I am also kind of curious about the worry that must also be sort of seated in the back of your mind with that, right?
So hearing you say it gives me chills, and because it's a reflection on people that I see every day. We are only able to provide that which the American people bequest to us. And so part of our training and part of our commitment to our development of our volunteers is to remember that you are representing the compassion of others. You are being given the opportunity to provide direct financial assistance through the donations of the American people. Does it give me worry? I think what I've seen over the last 3 years, and this is both nationally and locally, that our commitment to the National Response Plan and our commitment to be specialized and focused has meant that we've been able to do our key disaster response responsibilities better. Mm-hmm. And so obviously there's always individuals who aren't pleased with what we do, but on average, to have the confidence and the respect of so many individuals for what we do is very humbling, and I'm honored to represent the organization. It's changed a lot now. So let me go back. What we used to get, because we tried to be everything to all people, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we would have done furnace repair. We would have done, 3 months rent. We would have done appliance repair. We would have done debris removal. We would have done rebuilding of homes. Very costly model, very laborious. A lot of people needed. Because we've gone back and focused just on our mission, helping people prepare for and respond to disasters, and within the National Response Plan, focus on sheltering, bulk distribution of supplies and resources, I think it's helped us become a better organization and one that people can put their trust in.
So obviously then you had to essentially pivot right into winter, and I'm very curious, after a long late summer and fall, what that transition looked like as you guys got into what I would imagine becomes house fire season for I would assume that's when those numbers start to tick up. What was that transition like, and then what did the winter look like for you guys?
So it wasn't a clear pivot. We had a couple storms, one by the name of Michael and the other one, is Harvey, I believe. And so we had a couple disaster volunteers that committed up to 3 months of disaster duty, and we encouraged them to take some time off in December. But so we had numerous deployments. I had a chance to kind of break the rust off my own shoulders and go down to Bay County, Florida, as part of the Michael response. So I was down there for 2 weeks. And through this, from August right on through, the fire season or the heating season prompts our fire season. Not that there's a direct correlation, but it just happens that way. And we're up. The number of single and multifamily house fires across our 6 county areas are up for this year. And I don't have any reason for it. They don't discriminate. Whether it's a large-scale disaster or a single or multifamily fire, it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. We respond to retired senior VPs, and we respond to individuals who are putting 3 and 4 families in one apartment. It doesn't matter. What we're trying to do, though, is make sure that individuals in all spectrums recognize that home fires are still a potential, and there are things you can do to prevent them, and most importantly, to save your life.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, volunteers, they drive what you guys do. Donations also drive what you guys are able to do. When you wrapped up 2018, were you sitting in a good place, or were you sort of playing catch-up heading into 2019?
From a volunteer standpoint and from a financial standpoint, I would say we are in a very fortunate position. We have some wonderfully committed annual donors, and we're honored to have their trust and their gifts. We saw a wonderful fundraising opportunity throughout the national storms, and we continue to see local gifts support our local fire responses. Volunteers, they were tired, and I hope some of them, I know some of them took some time off, but I also know some of them just kept right on donating their time. So we do want to say we're really appreciative.
Is that incredible? Like that,
it is.
Disasters are always happening somewhere. And there's probably always an opportunity to donate your time somewhere.
There absolutely
the Red Cross
absolutely.
organization, right?
And there's a lot of competition. And I encourage folks to make a commitment. We're seeing, I think, as a sector, if you look at the human service and nonprofit sector, whether it's the Red Cross or Catholic Charities or your local church group or your volunteer fire company, I believe we're all seeing the result of kind of a transition of population. Upstate population's kind of flat at best, and many individuals are working second jobs, they're raising their grandkids. We are so fortunate to have the commitment of the individuals that we have. Mm-hmm. if some of your listenership and viewership are not volunteering, even if you could do 1 hour a week somewhere, please give it a consideration. For me, it's very rewarding. If you want to do it for a resume builder, that's okay too. But I think it connects you to the community, and it connects you to something that you believe in. We heading into 2019, we're still running over for local fire responses. That's a bit disconcerting. And the weather patterns, the weather is always changing, but I would say personally, for my 50 plus years living in upstate New York, that many of the storm systems, even that we saw just this past month, generated more rain than I remember as a young person living and growing up here. So I think we have some realistic potential for ongoing flash flooding. That's not necessarily new, but it seems to be in different places. Additionally, I don't know why, even with code and UL safety standards, we're still burning houses down, and I can't believe that we're still losing lives in those fires. So bring me back, because now I'm on a soapbox, Josh. So you better. We're fortunate to have. We're only able to do what we do with the generosity of our donors. Absolutely.
And it speaks to how much you guys are doing with how little you actually have to do it with. I mean, you're fortunate, but at the same time, you're doing it with very few, as opposed to how many could if the whole population were actually all participating. To that end, you have obviously a program, this is sort of an annual thing, right? Sound the alarm?
So, yeah, let me back up. In 2014, the American Red Cross kind of took a look at our responses, both at the local level and the national level. They also took a look at the fatality stats, both nationally and at state levels. And it became pretty apparent that fatalities due to fire fall within the top 3 almost every year in every state across the nation. So the Board of Governors and the American Red Cross decided that there's an opportunity here to accomplish our mission, which is to try to prevent and alleviate suffering. So we partnered with Kitacorp, and we started what's known as the Home Fire Prevention Campaign. This is year-round, where we not only install up to 3 10-year batteried smoke alarms, but we couple that with some education, and that is an evacuation plan, which I happen to bring with me. This one has some magnets on it, so you can actually place it on your refrigerator or wherever you want it. And then we actually go through and we talk through with the homeowner while we're there about ways to prevent the most common disasters, and that includes cooking, fireplaces and space heaters, smoking safety, and electrical and appliance safety. So National Fire Protection Association has found that when you couple a mitigation activity such as installing smoke alarms with an education activity, which is creating an evacuation plan, that you basically create a 50% chance of preventing a fatality due to a fire. So we started down that path. And to date, we know that the program has saved 550 lives. We've installed over 1.3 million alarms, and made somewhere in the neighborhood of 600,000 homes safer with the education nationwide. So last year, even though we had the hurricanes, we were going to kick off in the fall, the organization said we're going to have a premier event. So we're going to get away from the golf tournaments. We're going to get away from some of these other gala events. We're going to get back to our mission. We're going to have an event. We're going to call it Sound the Alarm. And we're going to install our 1 millionth alarm somewhere in this country in the spring. Great, let's do it. And so they targeted specific communities, communities that are elderly, communities that have a high concentration of young infants and new families, and also low income. Because some of the feedback that we received is that individuals would have smoke alarms in their house, but they thought that it was cost prohibitive, right? So lo and behold, we installed our 1 millionth alarm a year ago, and the event was tremendously successful. New volunteers joined, new donors and new partners came in, and so they said, gosh, maybe we should do this again. So this is our second year that we're doing Sound the Alarm. Our goal this year is to install over a 3-week period from April 27th right on through until May 13th to install 100,000 alarms nationwide, and to make 3/4 divided by 3 homes safer with fire prevention education and evacuation training. Our part here in the Finger Lakes, to help reach that goal, we're going to do 250 installs. We are honored to have our partners down in Schuyler County this year. Last year we focused on our our most busy counties. So Wayne County continues to be the county with the most fires annually for us. They've experienced 2 fatalities over the last 2 years. Chemung County is the most fatal county for us. They, I think it was last year, they ended up with 3 fatalities. Years prior to that, their numbers were up somewhere 11, 12 going back to 2014. And what we found in Schuyler County is that last year alone, Schuyler County doubled the number of home fires that they have. Now, Schuyler County is a wonderful place to be. My wife and I used to live there, and we miss it, actually. Last year, they doubled the number of home fires that they had. They had 11 responses that we were involved in, and unfortunately, 2 of those responses resulted in fatalities. So if you kind of boil that down, that was a 1-year span where if, for each one fire that occurred, or for every fire that occurred, you end up with a chance of perishing in it, 1 to 5. Yeah. So we reached out to Office of the Aging. We partnered with county legislature, and we're going to focus on Schuyler County to help install 100,000 alarms nationwide. We're going to do our part. Like I said, we're going to do 250. Mm-hmm. But it's a wonderful program. I am convinced, and I know, that we already have saved lives. 21 lives have been documented in western and central New York, and we're claiming 4 of them right here in Lodi. A gentleman was kind enough to go through and invite us into his home, and we installed the smoke alarms, did the evacuation education, and with the follow-up after the incident, he mentioned the evacuation plan twice. He said, you all came in, you went through the evacuation, I knew what I had to do, and I was able to get my family out. And so hats off to him, and we're going to claim 1 more. This one's kind of a gray area. We had a team that were going to do an installation. I think it was up here in Central Falls 2 years ago, and the team arrived at the homeowner's front steps. No response to the knocks and the doorbell. And while they were calling the homeowner, one of the team members kind of peered in the window and noticed that the homeowner was lying unconscious in the home. They were able to call 911 and save that individual's life. So we're going to claim 5, right. But it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. So obviously this event has a blossoming effect.
Yeah.
It's contagious. And I guess I'm kind of interested just on the awareness side that this brings up. Even if you may not be going to a specific household, that household might think about this and might check their smoke alarms or update them, or whatever the case may be. Is that sort of the side effect, the positive side effect of a program like this?
We hope so. I don't know that we can really track that. individuals are so warm and inviting. It is a grassroots effort, and it's an intimate effort. I mean, we're bringing 3 volunteers. We've done our background check on all of them, right?
Yeah.
Into an individual's home. And it's a conversation. You develop a rapport very quickly. The team usually has potentially 11 other homes scheduled for that day. And you very quickly have to develop a rapport with the homeowner. So the team of 3, and I can't make this up, but it does create quite the beginnings of a joke to ask how many Red Crossers does it take to install a smoke alarm. But we send out a team of 3, and that's for their safety and the homeowner's safety.
Right.
One individual is designated as the installer. So we have one individual who is going to be working from the ladder. Another individual is working to support that individual so that they don't fall and provide them what they need.
Yeah.
And then another individual is doing documentation and also education. So it's a team of 3, and I think it's communities coming together as we saw in any level response. This is a preparedness effort, but it's still individuals coming together. And so some of our partners, we've been honored to have Wallen Insurance on board for years down in Chemung County. I told them it's completely shameless if you want to wear Wallen Insurance and talk about insurance while you're there, but you need to make sure you're documented that you covered all of the pieces of the American Red Cross program. And he's trained his entire staff, 20-plus individuals. They go out every Thursday and schedule installs. So it's a community-to-community program, as long as we have the individual volunteers from those communities willing to make the commitment.
And when it comes to these, any of these disasters, whether it's a super localized one or maybe more of a regional one, what are some of the things, or when you're talking about the Red Cross, what are some of the statistics or the broad points that you try to get across to people who might not be really into that nuanced sort of discussion about why this is really, really important? What are some of the things that you try to sort of, the red flags, so to speak, that you try to wave in front of people so that they understand this is something that they do have to take seriously?
Yeah, well, as I shared, that real quick snapshot from Schuyler County's responses last year was out of the norm.
Right.
The reality is that every day 7 people perish in a house fire. We respond to nearly 65,000 house fires nationwide a year as part of our partnership with local fire companies and emergency managers. I think the other piece that I found rather staggering is, with the building materials that are available, with the materials that are being used in furnishings, it takes less than 2 minutes for your house to become either engulfed in flame and or completely engulfed in smoke and heat. So I think the 2, 2, and 2 is some of the messaging that we want individuals to know. You need to have 2 ways to get out of every room in your house. You need to know what they are. You need to practice so that you can actually time yourself and get out of those rooms in under 2 minutes. And we ask you to practice this drill, and this is the hardest part. We ask you to practice this drill twice a year. In my opinion, make it fun. If I had my kids lined up in a room and I said go with a stopwatch, they'd be thrilled. And if I told them we're going out for ice cream afterwards, if you can get it under 2 minutes,
right,
they'd be thrilled, right?
Yeah.
Make it fun. This is potentially your life-saving moment. Mm-hmm. And you can use something as simple as our little dry erase board if you want, mm-hmm, but know how you're going to get out of your house. The other piece is know where you're going to meet afterwards. So if my wife goes out the back door and I go out the bedroom window and my sons go out their window, where are we meeting? Mm-hmm. Because if the incident commander shows up and we can't account for all the residents of our dwelling, then we're putting now a fire personnel at risk because they have to go in and try to find us. Mm-hmm. So there is some seriousness to this, but I think you can make it fun in the preparedness side. So anyway, kind of you asked about further statistics. So
Well, I want to hone in on that, though, because it's interesting you say that. That was going to be my next question, was actually about the planning of how to get out, your escape route, so to speak.
Yeah.
In that situation. It's funny, you talk to most people, and most people just give you, it's a single family house. I'm just gonna get out. But there does have to be that sort of next level thought process that goes into it, right? Like, it just can't be that simple. I'm gonna get up, go out the door, and walk down the hallway and walk out my front door, because it probably won't be possible, or could not be possible.
Each disaster is unique. Each fire is unique, and I encourage you to check in with emergency management and your fire professionals locally. What you think may be the best way out, you may not be able to gain access to. You may not be able to see it. Depending on the fire, the lights may go out first. So if it happens in the middle of the night, can you get out of each of the rooms in your house in under 2 minutes, in the dark, potentially crawling? And I don't say that to scare anybody. I just say run some of the different scenarios. What happens if the fire happens and only half of your family's at home? Who's the contact person? Do they know who to call? If you're on vacation, who's watching your home? What if you have somebody that's staying there and is not familiar with your home? Do they know how to get out? And what if my mobility is impaired? I mean, I'm getting older here, Josh. I don't get around like I used to. But if I don't move so fast, and my way is very narrow, right? What if it depends on the structure of the home as well? So, it's not necessarily to scare anybody, but it's to plant the seed of, when you're doing your preparedness, you have to individualize it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be just the Red Cross. Talk to your fire folks. Your volunteer fire companies know what they're experiencing every time they go out. Right. Now, that doesn't mean that they know what they're getting into, but they know to a certain degree how the fire is going to behave, what it's going to produce, and potentially what they're putting their lives on the line for. If you're in that home fire, you're at risk. So we want you out of there in under 2 minutes.
So obviously, as you guys move forward through the spring, is blood still
oh gosh,
the
yes.
thing that you're obviously it's something that you're constantly having to fight for.
Yeah.
Where do we stand with the need for blood now versus where we did a few months ago?
So a few months ago, with coming out of the winter season, a number of drives obviously had to be canceled. We're coming off a spring break, and so some of our most generous blood donors continue to be our educational institutions. That's at the high school level and at the college level. Yeah. When they're not in session, we're not able to collect. I'm not sure we have a clear cause, but we are seeing a significant decrease in the number of individuals donating blood for whatever reason, and it appears to be somewhat America specific. Worldwide, blood collection is growing. More countries are developing their blood programs, and they're able to collect significantly more blood. For obvious reasons, right? If you're doing a whole blood donation, but again, the advancements in technology and treatment for different types of illnesses, such as cancer or other treatments, require different types of products from the blood. Mm-hmm. So the need is there. Hospitals and treatment center administrators are doing their best to keep their costs down, and so they might delay their purchase until they absolutely need it. But the reality is that, if I show up at the emergency room and I need blood, the expectation is that it'll be there. So coming out of the winter season, we were as I guess the nation's largest blood provider. The American Red Cross holds about 43% of the nation's blood collection industry. We were seeing more blood being dispensed than was being collected. Not necessarily unusual, but because we've seen kind of a decrease in the number of donors, it really was it was a bit of a nail biter. Mm-hmm. At this point, there's still a need. There's always a need. Similar to practicing that evacuation plan, I would encourage individuals that are eligible to donate blood and willing to make that commitment to give one more pint, give one more unit this year. If each eligible donor would make an appointment for one more donation each year, we wouldn't see this variation. But folks get busy. Mm-hmm. I would encourage anybody that is a regular donor or who has considered becoming a regular donor to use the American Red Cross blood donor application on their smart device. It makes it really easy. You can make your appointments. You can fill out your health history paperwork. So going through the drive is actually
makes it easier.
It makes it easier. But for whatever reason, it seems like, feels like it's falling out of favor a bit with the American culture. And I don't have a real reason why. I think it's easier than ever. I think it's much more enjoyable than ever. Technology is working in the blood collection industry to continue to keep it safe. The FDA continues to oversee all of the industry. So safer than ever, easier than ever. It's just up to you to make a commitment.
Is that something that will require you guys to sort of re-envision how you do things if that
trend absolutely.
continues?
We already are, yeah. So in July of this year, we've kind of restructured our collection entity. And we're seeing right now, we're taking a look at nationwide, seeing how we can bring blood services back over to the chapter side. So we'll be seeing volunteers and blood staff better aligned with our current chapter side, just to try to continue to make it easy and safe, but also to increase collections.
And there's another event I was supposed to ask you about, Ride for the Red.
Ride for the Red. So the Harley Owners Group out of Arkport and Corning has been a wonderful contributor and a 10-year plus. This will be their 11th year, I believe. They hold a motorcycle event. I would argue it's one of the safest rides in upstate New York because it's led by the motorcycle division of New York State Police, and tremendous skills in those gentlemen and ladies that ride those bikes. They've made a commitment to raise money through their Ride for the Red. It is Labor Day weekend, so August 31st, September 1st. Look for it on their website, and I don't have it off the top of my head. Sorry, Josh, but do a search for Ride for the Red and plug in Big Flats, New York.
We will drop a link for it right in the story that accompanies this podcast. So my last question for you is, for those who might be interested in volunteering, who might be interested in getting involved, what's the process look like, and how can they get that process rolling?
Sure. So we try to be pretty technologically savvy. Individuals can go to redcross.org, and there should be a tab that says volunteer. And then once you enter your name and your address, it'll assign you to a chapter in your zip code area. Mm-hmm. From there, one of our volunteer recruitment specialists will contact you, find out your interests, and help you negotiate through the basic orientation and training. If that doesn't work for you, I encourage you to give us a call. Contact your local American Red Cross. Again, you can search that at redcross.org, or you can call us at 607-936-3766 and say, I'd like to volunteer. Donating blood's, like I said, easier than ever. There is a Red Cross blood page, or you can use the application to set up your appointment. And if you'd like to make a financial contribution, you can call me directly, 607-329-0114, And we welcome your gift of time, money, and blood. It's truly an honor.
Well, we appreciate you coming in, and of course, we appreciate all the work you're doing in the community all the time. That is really the way you guys are giving back is really second to none here in Finger Lakes.
I will share that with our volunteers. Thank you. That means a lot.
That's all the time we have for this week. I'll be back next Sunday with Mark and Kevin Henderson. In the meantime, be sure to visit fingerlakes1.com for the latest headlines and to see archived episodes. Sunday Conversation is also available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great week, guys.